What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new Lightshare episode. I'm back today with Adrian, and today we're going to be talking about some different topics, stuff involving, seeking validation and also uh, maybe different tools on artwork that we've seen out there, but also seeking validation on like your own projects as well and how that can lead to maybe certain consequences down your down your future. So yeah, what do we have to say about it?
Sounds good, and it sounds troublesome also,
We,
but it's
we see we
normal.
see it a lot out there. I mean, we've been in that position before.
We were there
We've
too. Yeah.
yeah, trying to get likes from people or ask people to comment on our stuff. It's
Yeah, you're basically just fishing for that sort of um, pat on the back or something, like, yeah, you're doing good, you're on the right track or something. Because that's every in anything new that you're trying to learn, you'll have that sort of impulse, to reach out to some professional or someone who knows more than you and ask them like, "Hey, am I doing okay? Is this okay?" So
yeah,
it's totally normal, but yeah, it can reach a point that might feel a little too, I don't know how to define it.
it's a little too
Like
overbearing on
it
somebody that
becomes a
you're.
crutch,
Yeah,
you know,
I would
because
say.
you rely on that to feel good about your stuff. And that's the problem I think we're exploring here. When your validation seeking turns into a problem because it doesn't come from within, you need it from outside.
Or somebody else, yeah. um Yeah, I mean, I used to go through the same too, but for a short little while, I just was wondering if my art techniques were going the right way because I thought, which benchmark should I follow? Because oftentimes when you're a beginner, you don't really see if your skill level meets the criteria until someone points it out that, like, oh, yeah, your
Yeah.
fundamentals are off, this is off. And Um, I fell into that trap, but over time you kind of pick up on things. That's why I think it's important to be your own harshest critic, I guess, and try to like really see your mistakes for what they are. Put them side by side next to a pro and um, really analyze like, okay, I'm not reaching the benchmark here, so I have to go fix that.
Plus, in the beginning, you probably don't even understand the difference between concept art and illustration and all that stuff. So you'll be probably doing loose illustrations, um, calling them concept art or something like that, and you're missing the point of, let's say, the purpose of each thing you're doing, each of those designs and what they are for, the call out sheets. So there's a ton to discuss here for sure. But
I guess
yeah,
we can talk
um,
about like why validation can be crippling, you know, to a beginner or someone intermediate even.
sure.
Um,
So first thing that comes to mind is that it's crippling because it limits you, it chains you to that closed cycle of, it's like a dopamine rush, a dopamine, um, like you need it. You need people to like your post or to tell you that you did good on this or that to keep going because you don't feel that yourself. So this can be easily misinterpreted as arrogant or something like that because people might be like, oh, but then all I have to do to feel good is to say, I'm the best artist in the world, right? My work is perfect.
of
I
course
don't
not.
need validation for anyone. That's not what we're saying.
We're just saying like you have to get to a point where you know your mistakes and clearly you've did the self work to know that I did this wrong in the past and now I fixed it. today. So I don't really need someone to comment on my work saying it's good, um, because I already know it needs improvement on certain areas, right? You see a lot of examples like this on ArtStation, how like people get stuck into trends and then, people commenting like so good, it's so great, it's awesome, but they don't realize that they're kind of trapped into that ArtStation loop of making the same generic paintings we've seen like a million times, or like, yeah, the typical like stickman figure looking at big
It's almost
landscape
always the same. It's the same composition all the time that keeps being,
recycled.
abused by. Yeah, it's just the recycling process of the same. Like I said, the same composition, the same frame, the same everything. And this has nothing to do with the camera angle or whatever, because that's, you know, human eye level cameras are only natural because of extreme degrees of relatability, right? For obvious reasons. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the classic, like you said, the stickman figure, like no story, just a dude and a giant something, you know,
Yeah.
like small versus big. It's like typical. So it's
And
fine when you do that as as someone with 50 years of experience in the industry, because you're not doing it to abuse a composition style or something. In fact, it will likely have a huge purpose in the way you're choosing to depict that because of story, which is, by the way, what's missing in all of these things nowadays. Story. There's no story in any of it. It's
mhm,
just
pretty
a
rendering.
like a knight or a warrior or a traveler somehow, with some robes and a stick or a sword standing on a cliff staring at some large castle in the background or something like that. It's just, the mega epic vibes and all that stuff. Sure, that's cool, but it's hard to tell what the story is in a single image when done incorrectly. And this leads me to another point to discuss, which is the continuity between different pieces that follow the same story, So this is what I think all of us would like to see more in portfolios, which is like an IP, like a project, like something that spans several images, worlds to immerse ourselves within instead of just individual pieces of like a castle, a giant
Yep.
orb floating, or now there's like a sci-fi whatever scene, and now it's like it's almost always the same thing, right?
Like Project
And this
1,
is not
Project 2, Project 3.
it's not even a critique or an opinion on style or anything like that. We haven't even gotten there. We're just talking about the scope of the very paintings or images you do, which now that I made that little um, distinction there, like paintings or images, isn't it the same? A painting or an image? Well, some images nowadays, some of these paintings, supposedly paintings, have very little painting. They're all
Yeah, I was just gonna say
3D and
that
stuff. And
the the more 3D scenes, or the more concept scenes that I see that are using heavy 3D, it's losing that artistic flair, that artistic soul, Um and it, like,
overly detailed and stuff, right? The
yeah,
textures, the
more and more you see these images starting to look like in-game screenshots. They're not even like paintings anymore. Like you take a screen cap in a video game and it looks like a concept already. Like there's no work done.
yeah,
It's just like a 3D rendering, but there's no like touch up or um you know, usually you'd use the 3D as a base to kind of set the scene, set the perspective, and then you'd paint over it and like add your own kind of artistic design sense. But now it's just like kit bash this model, or like take someone else's kit bash, mash it in together, and then this is my
And
concept.
almost
Yeah,
and almost like 90% of it is already done in the 3D phase, so that you
yeah.
have very little paint over to do.
And that's
Um,
kind of defeating the purpose of like concept, because concept is like making new ideas, right? You're not just recycling certain ideas or certain assets from different people. Like you have to think, as a concept artist, like
yeah.
think like
No, but I think I thought we were talking about the very technique itself, which is 3D, right? Because the point of concept is to be fast and to quickly depict an idea. It's not about how detailed it is or how this or how that. It's more about the idea. The problem is that most of those scenes that we see people make likely take very long, right? So
like
you
50
spend
hours of
like,
work.
yeah, I think you told me
Like
you told me this earlier.
modeling the
Like,
character, modeling the
why
assets,
spend
modeling the
why spend like 20 hours plus modeling and texturing and doing all this work to just make one image of this shot, like this setting?
and it's a
That's it. I could have
cinematic
painted that.
keyframe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 20
You're
hours
like,
of
I
modeling.
I could have painted that. There's
Yeah.
no purpose in the 3D process at this point. It doesn't solve any. It doesn't speed up any perspective issues or anything like that. It would have taken me a lot longer, because there's complex scenes that I agree they would be better handled in 3D first, especially things that have, I don't know, insane perspectives or whatever, you know. But
I
yeah, I
I
don't
think
know.
a
All I'm
really
saying is,
yeah, like the useful part of 3D that you could use is like mostly for the call outs. Like you paint up a keyframe scene, and then you can now like model that scene into different perspectives and then draw out like what exactly is missing in that shot, like what's
yeah,
behind the scene, what's to the right of the scene, left, front. So you just draw it out, or like, I don't know, paint it out in a sketch phase kind of thing. And it can already solve like most problems for the 3D artist just by drawing. But the pretty painting is just like, I don't think it should take that long. I mean, depending on your fidelity, I guess. But like, I don't know. I see that like some people, they don't release art for several years. Like they make one huge painting, like 20 hours of modeling assets, whatever, and then they just never make artwork for a while again, because the workflow takes so long for that one specific piece. It's like they just release bangers once every couple months, and it's, I don't know, like they wouldn't be able to produce more work if they wanted to, because they're trapped to the limitations of 3D. They're a slave to the program instead of
yeah,
like, I could do this in 2 hours, or I could do this in 3 hours, just painting it. And like they don't realize like that could speed up their time if they just, you know, sat in front of Photoshop, learn how to paint, and try to make badass painting just from painting alone. No 3D, little bit of photo bash, but not like too much, you know, and see how your fidelity matches.
yeah, yeah. That's an interesting take, and I think we can get a little more. Like, this conversation can get a little more complex now, because I think that we're not talking against 3D. We're not talking a bit against Photo Bash or anything like that. We are just warning I guess, against an over dependency on 3D and all those other techniques,
Like a
right?
crutch.
However, yeah, exactly. So they don't become like a crutch. Um, but I would say that, yeah, it's the foundations are drawing, 2D. But because of the pressure that people are experiencing from left and right throughout these years in the industry, everyone is like trying to raise the bar, and they learn these other techniques like 3D, like photo bashing and all that stuff.
Gotta jump on board.
But
can't
yeah,
can't miss it.
and look, we've all been there, like I was excited in the beginning of my career about learning all these different programs and software. And I'm going to make like a quick analogy here with like social platforms and the hashtags and the share features and the tagging features and all. You want to use all those little features that they give you, right? The same way you want to use as many software, as many programs in your workflow as possible, just to show like a wide range of skills. Like, I know 3D code, I know Blender, I know Marvelous Designer, I know whatever other engines are out there, Unreal Engine, I know, anything. And you want to kind of like almost collect them as badges, because that's what they look like next to your artwork on ArtStation. They look like badges. Like, look how many programs this guy used, right? That would usually make you think, okay, this dude is a 3D artist, right? Because they use a lot of different software. They
Yeah,
use Maya,
it's
and
no longer
then
a concept
you
guy.
know,
He's just all
yeah.
3D.
But then you see the title. It says, "I did this concept for," and you're like, "What? This is concept art? Like how?"
It's
So
like 3D art now. Yeah.
yeah,
That's why I noticed this
and
huge shift, like in the industry over the last couple of years. Like more and more people transitioning to that workflow, and you can't even differentiate between the concept artist and the 3D artist. Like, are you a 3D guy or are you a problem solver 2D guy? That's why we made that previous episode about the lost art of drawing and painting a while back.
mm,
We kind of highlighted a little bit of that, but I
yeah,
think it's now more apparent how it's blurring the lines these days. So, um,
though I don't know how else to explain it, because this might easily frame us as like against 3D or against
I mean, I
using
use
multiple
3D.
software.
I've used 3D
I
too,
use 3D
and
too,
Adrian,
and
yeah.
I was, yeah, I like VR sculpting and all that stuff. And there's a ton of people using ZBrush for detailed models and stuff like that. I think the tool is not the issue. I think the purpose that you give to that tool is the issue. That's what we're talking about here. You know, why are you detailing that castle like all over the place like that for hours on end? You know, just to learn. I'm just learning. Okay, cool, that's fine. But then as soon as you get to the point where you're no longer using it for, to help your process, you're just using it as a tool for rather validation, because I want
Yeah.
people to see me using this program, so they think of me as like, ah,
I wanted to
look,
see how
Adrian is,
technical it looks. I want
yeah,
people to praise it to see the fidelity because it looks so
because they might
detailed.
be because they might be under the conception of how showing this online might lead to um, employer eyes on their work or something, like, oh, look, he uses Blender, let's hire him, or something. So,
But I think they don't realize that some of these employers have seen that type of work like a million times. And that's the trap we kind of want to warn people about,
the thing
like,
is, that's usually a bonus. And
yeah.
we've all seen it in so many job offerings, right? Like, here's bonus things to have, like to know some 3D, to learn to know how to use Unreal Engine, for example. It's not a requirement. It's just a bonus thing. Like, if you know
Yeah.
that, that's great. But if you don't, it's fine. You can learn. You can always learn. So, yeah, I think, look, my point is that you should use whatever serves your process, okay? If that's how you work and these are the tools you use, good. But what we're talking about here is to not let those tools become crutches, right? So,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. And then it ties back to the validation thing, this crutch thing, because that validation becomes your crutch also to feel validated, I guess. Like, unless you hear it from your audience, from people online, from strangers on the internet, you don't feel good about your work somehow. That's not true, Adrian. I feel so good about my work. Then you should get ready because, you know, there's things you can't really disclose when you're when you're working with clients and all that stuff. There's this NDA stuff, and there's this, you know, a lot of things you can't show, you can't disclose to the public. So get ready for, to work on so many projects and stuff you can't talk about for not for a few months, sometimes for years. And you might feel like the work you did on those is just some of your best work ever, and you can't even show it. And get ready for when that project gets canceled and it never comes out.
And all that work you did is gone. You can't show it
What
for
about the NDA? Can't
decades.
I show it? Get ready for when they say no, you can't show it ever. I'm sorry. Because we've seen it a lot. Like,
Yeah.
people post about canceled projects and stuff. But what about those who can't post about canceled projects, right?
Oh, thanks.
You got to be ready for everything.
Exactly. And yeah, that over dependence on these tools also uh, kind of makes you a slave to buying the latest technology or buying the latest hardware, right? Because I've seen
Yeah.
some people in the industry dropping like $4,000 on a GPU. That's like, I don't know, bro. That's like 3 vacations right there. Or something. I'm not trying to tell people how to
Yeah.
spend their money, but I'm just saying like that's a lot just to like render
Yeah.
one image, you know. And
Hardware is expensive,
yeah,
and some of these programs require it. Like, for example, uh, Unreal Engine or stuff like. Even though it's so ironic to say it because it's so optimized and everything, right? It's real time rendering, blah blah blah. Unless you have an old CPU, an old GPU, very little RAM,
yeah,
and
that's
all
not
that
gonna
stuff.
work.
Yeah,
And you
for
just
painting, you don't need that much,
yeah,
unless you're kind of doing some 20K wide mega landscape, whatever,
mhm.
which
Like you're
is
doing
likely
a
not the
map
case.
painting or like a yeah,
Yeah.
but
For a concept, you don't need much.
yeah, if you're a 3D guy and you need to render like insane scenes, I could imagine you need more hardware. But if you're a
Yeah.
concept guy, like um I don't know. I just think wasting that much money is like kind of pointless. And it could save you more money in the long run. So you don't have to keep shelling out new tech on like I don't know what's gonna come out these days, like 6090
Yeah,
ATX or something like
likely.
that. Or I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
It's just going to keep scaling up, and it's going to be more expensive and more this and more that. It's a
It's like where
market.
does
I
it
mean,
end?
I
You
get
know?
it.
Yeah. At this point, art is not gonna look like art anymore. It's just gonna look too real to the point where it just doesn't look like art that you make. You know, and we're already kind of seeing that in a lot of concept art. Like it looks so photo real that you can't even differentiate if it's a painting or if it's a photo. And then that's when like you kind of lose the essence of art at that point. So you're now like a photo real concept artist. Or image maker,
Yeah, I mean,
There's people like that out there who have, success, but like for the
and
majority who
that's a
kind of
cat.
bandwagon, onto that thing, it becomes saturated, like a saturated market. And then, you know, now you're stuck in this
Yeah,
deeper
because
hole. Because, yeah,
there's stylized and there's ultra realistic categories, and there's a little bit for everyone out there, and there's needs for age category everywhere. But I guess what you're saying is that we are likely headed towards an oversaturated market of ultra realistic styles all over the place.
yeah, no one cares about story this much anymore, or, you know, getting better compositions or stuff like that. They just want rendering, high
Yeah,
capability. But
16K textures and highly detailed models and all of that. But, you know, that's like a beautiful shell containing nothing.
yeah,
It's like empty. So I remember how a friend of mine once said, like, I don't care about the graphics, bro. I care about the gameplay. And we were like, but don't you see how beautiful the game looks? And he's like, yeah, who cares? He always like disables the sound and he couldn't care less about the graphics. You know, he cared about performance and the story and the
that's like me.
visibility
Yeah,
of
I
like
love
his
that.
he's like he's like highly competitive, right? So uh I was quite the opposite. I couldn't care about the competitivity kind of aspects, and I was more about the visuals, the sound, all that stuff. But you see, there's a balance to all of it,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I guess this is not balanced nowadays. Not a lot. It's there's some projects that are really cool, but most of the time, the projects you see uploaded are individual pictures that belong to no project, or they're often titled something like "The Man with the Castle" or "The Traveler" or whatever, or I don't know.
sketch one,
But
sketch
sketch one,
002.
yeah, it's not like part of something else. And in my opinion, that's not like a requirement for you. You can post anything you want. Obviously, we're not telling you what to do with your life, right? We're just saying that it builds momentum and it can potentially put you on a path of self discovery with something that you keep exploring throughout your art, image after image, until one day it becomes very likely a bigger project that you put a name on, and it has a set of characters and different locations and different cultures or whatever, like I don't know what
Oh,
you
but
guys are
self
up to,
discovery is
but
so cheesy, Adrian.
self discovery, yeah, like
I'm just here for the
uh
money.
and that's totally okay, like if you want to market that as, yeah, if you put it that way, we're
Yeah,
all
I
in
feel
this
like,
for the money too, but not really.
yeah,
Some of us are more, we care about the soul aspect of it. Like
yeah,
we don't watch the trendy stuff because it's trendy. We watch what speaks to our heart somehow, what we resonate with, what
and
we
hopefully it
feel
resonates
ourselves.
with other people too. You know, like the
Yeah.
stories
No, I
that
mean
were
like the movies you watch, the games you play, the music you listen to, all that stuff. You don't listen to it because it sounds on the radio, or because it's on TV right now, or because it's hot somewhere online. You do it because you've always liked that project, because your father first presented that to you when you were a child, and now they're releasing the third part of that project or something, and it's just nostalgic or whatever. But I get what you're saying too.
Yeah. Touch the hearts of people that we want this sort of thing for. I mean, we
Oh yeah,
ultimately do it
that
for
because
ourselves, but like we also want
that's it.
it to resonate with people.
You do it for yourself because it comes from within, because it's your stuff and you like it. And then you find out that some other people also like this kind of stuff and it resonates with them as well and they like it. So that's a wonderful feeling right there, and more often than not, that's usually the case. But yeah, some people feel afraid of posting that, or it's been done a lot of times. It's oversaturated. Maybe no one did it like you know? But this can also be misinterpreted by the same people we're saying that are just posting a character and a castle or a giant mountain or some temple or some ruin or whatever,
Yeah.
um, saying that then I can just keep doing it because no one did it like me before, right? Mine is unique. Mine is not like anything you've ever seen. It's tricky. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Um, I think that's all we really have to
These
say.
topics, these topics always exhaust me a little bit
Yeah,
because there's so many possibilities for everything. And I'm under the impression that when people listen to us talk about this kind of stuff, they think that we're coming off as like dudes who know everything and we're just, telling people what to do, or I'm just sharing some ideas. That's it. Like I'm not.
we're sharing from past experience, but also things we've seen out there, like the trends and how people are complaining online. They're looking for solutions. So we're trying to offer at least uh, our solution, our end. We're not saying it's the right way. We're just saying like maybe it could help alleviate the situation. Um,
It's like that meme of the kid riding the bicycle, then puts a stick in the wheel and then falls and then complains.
yeah.
So if you keep doing that kind of art and then you complain you're not getting jobs or the industry hates you or whatever, you're that kid. So, so start adapting, The problem is people are probably not even aware that they're doing that because they think that I'm using all these programs and I'm overcomplicating my pipeline and my workflow. Why can't you guys see this and hire me? Well, because that's 10% of it. I don't care how you do it. I want it done and you're not doing it.
The best
I need
thing,
this problem to be solved.
yeah.
And
I think the best thing you'd want to hear from a studio is like, do it your way. You know, don't do it anyone
oh
else's
yeah.
way. Do it the way you do it. And if you can't
Hmm.
do it the way you do it, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of like, um, you know, or like following those people's, other people's trends and stuff kind of defeats your own voice, right?
Yeah.
And uh, companies aren't hiring you for you now. It's like now you're just like a cog in the machine, uh, because the company's coming directly to you, hire you for your style or for your storytelling, whatever it is. They're essentially trusting you with your capabilities and they want to use your voice on their project. So I think that makes it even more special to seek out your voice, forget these trends, be a trendsetter, not like follower of those traps. It'll just benefit you in the long.
Yeah. That's incredibly encouraging and inspiring, but I don't know if this is the environment to do that because it seems like this game is rigged against that sort of mentality.
Yeah.
It seems to be a place where um yeah, it's called an industry for a reason, I guess, because it's industrial. It's meant to be repeated and replicated and copies and copies and copies at mass scale and reproduced and everything. It's no longer about the I don't know, the unique voice or whatever. It's about what sells, what gives you
unless
money.
unless it's an indie studio, that's like a whole different
Exactly.
story.
Yeah.
Because there have been many with smaller companies that produce amazing games, and they've
And
only
they
done it
blow
with
up
like 10 people
and they
or
become
20 people.
extremely
Yeah.
successful. Yeah. I think look, there's this I don't know how successful that game is, but it's like a city builder or something. It's called Manor Lords and it's like an RTS that I don't know, like a guy made it, you know, and now he's got a team and everything. But I'm not saying that he's got this unique voice or unique whatever, but people seem to like it, and it's just an example. There's plenty of that. In
Yeah.
fact, back in my first days in the industry, I remember how in that same indie sort of development uh, landscape, there were many stories like that. Like, look at this guy; he's making this all by himself. He's been doing it for 2 years, and we were watching that, saying, "There's no way this is so polished and so good looking. It's like a finished game." You would say that 400 people worked on that, but no, it was just a one army dude,
Crazy.
a one dude army. Sorry, and yeah, I I don't know, but all I'm
Yeah.
saying is that you should listen to those ideas and you should stop trying to impress people who don't care about the stuff you're doing because this is something we've been hearing a lot. Um, People want to see you do good, but not better than them or something like that. Maybe you remember that phrase better.
Yeah. That's what it is. But
Yeah.
our message is mostly towards I guess beginner artists, We're not necessarily pointing this out to veterans who know what they're doing. It's people who kind of want to step foot in this industry and they see what's out there and they're like, I'm going to do that. This makes sense to me. Um, but then they kind of get led astray and go into the wrong direction, and eventually, like, their career doesn't pan out for some reason because they've been told a lie, right? That's kind of like what we're trying to prevent future concept art. So
Yeah.
yeah, just be mindful who you listen to out there because people want to sell you courses or they want to sell you mentorships about like how to do these things, but little do they know that they're also probably leading the blind, leading them astray, and yeah, it's like it puts the beginner in more debt. They followed what they said, or they paid for a course or mentor, veers them off their path because I thought you told me this was the right way. I did what you said, and then you know it wasn't the right way. So that's why like just have to be mindful about what you're following, what kind of artwork you want to make. Don't just copy people. Uh, find out more about yourself, and I think that's the scariest thing to do. Facing your innermost self to make the best work that you want to make, you know?
The mumbo jumbo people hate about these speeches
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like, it's too philosophical. But if you logically think about it, it's only it's only walking the very same lines of the definition of art, which is an expression of the self, of what you see, of your vision, right? So if your vision is like a regurgitated version of someone else's vision, I don't know. It's not that attractive. Someone else digested it already, you know?
And I've seen countless times like artists in the industry who follow that trend, they end up burning out. They never create art again. Wonder like what happened to them. They followed a trend that they thought would fulfill their career, and then they end up quitting. I see it happen too
Yeah.
much. That's why I kind of need to learn how to block the outside noise. Not be completely oblivious, but just ignore like what's catching your attention the most. Because we live in a very attention driven society where what's the next pretty thing? What's trending? This, what's that? And it steals our attention from ourself. Ultimately, go the wrong way. Don't listen to that inner
It's
voice.
it's
Boom.
it's like a it's like a family business, like a bakery or something, against the multinational chain of restaurants next door or something, like they have all the money, all the resources, all that fancy marketing and all that stuff, but people still prefer this tiny little business, this shop, this bakery thing, because of the taste, it's the flavor, there's
Maybe they use
something
fresher
about it.
ingredients because they're local. They have
I
to
don't know, something about it. It feels raw. It feels genuine. It feels like in the other place, it feels like
manufacture.
industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like on a
So,
conveyor belt line or
hmm.
something.
And I think this is what people see in projects done by individuals who no longer obey the same rules that are being dictated by the algorithm, but instead by their own voices. And because you're real, you recognize real.
Yeah.
So you see their stuff and say, that's what I want to do. So I don't know. That inspires me at least.
Yeah, it's like when people go to Adrian's page, they see like that's Adrian's work. That's who that's what Adrian embodies, you know? They
That's
don't
Adrian's word from like years ago because it's been like years I haven't posted anything new,
yeah.
but
But still like you can
not because I
see
don't have anything, but because I can't.
yeah. When I see your work, it's embodies who you are. Like sure it might not be the most impressive technical rendering that we've seen out there on our station, but it feels like it has purpose, you know? Like there's meaning, there's a sense of your expression as you're painting it. You're not just doing all 3D. It's got like the Adrian vibe to it. Because you also have like the concept of your dog, and that kind of embodies like your personal identity in art. So
Yeah, and
I
it's
can
thank you, bro,
see
by
it.
the way. And it's not even related to the specifics of which characters or which shapes or which objects or which locations you depict in your work. It's often more like a an invisible touch that it's probably unknown to you, the author, but it's something that everybody else is capable of seeing. So they can recognize it instantly when they see you, when they see it. For example, like when they see your work, you know, they they must be likely saying something like, ah, that's very Domblay-ish, you know? Like it's, oh, wait, that's his work. Oh, okay, then I was right. Yeah, I spotted it. So it has that unmistakable print,
There,
you know,
yeah,
to
there's a
it.
certain feel in the brushstrokes that I think ties the identity to back to you, right? Like Adrian
Yeah.
paints this way, like certain brushstrokes that he makes,
It's the
right?
edges, the
Yeah,
lighting, the treatment of different non-focal points or whatever, you know, the shapes, because some people are very recognized for their shape language. So
stuff
the
like that. So
composition and, well, yeah.
be like new, but we're just basically saying if people can recognize you, work, I think you've done a good job like expressing your voice. But if your painting looks like every other piece out there, what's special about it? Not trying to put
Yeah.
anyone down, but it's if you really want your work to have longevity, I think you should really try to find what you like about or what you want to
It's a
incorporate.
simple it's a simple law of cause and effect, you know. If you want to stand out, then you have to stand out somehow to separate yourself from the crowds, or yeah, to somehow stand out again. Like, and
Yeah,
there's many ways to do that. There's good ways and there's bad ways to do it.
I mean,
Um,
some people do stand out on technical fidelity. You know, happen. You know, it's not impossible, but those are the people who've kind of pioneered that already. And then a lot of people are just trying to like copy that sort of thing.
mhm.
Um, so they're the trendsetters for that. But like, what if you could trend set something that's not like having to do with technical fidelity? What if it's just like story that you want to tell? Composition, maybe you make your compositions a certain way. Color choices, lighting.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like that's most of what we without
All
going
right.
too drawn out into it, but yeah,
Yeah. We might revisit it, likely, very likely in the future. But yeah, this is one of those topics that diverge into multiple branches, you know, of the conversation, touching upon multiple different subjects. And it's very easy to get carried away. But yeah, we kept this one about this validation sort of thing. Like, don't wait on someone else to tell you that your work is cool, because the truth is, you know if it's cool or not, right?
yeah. Don't let anything be a crutch, whether it's validation, programs, techniques. Just use it as like a supplement, but not as the whole thing.
Yeah.
One of this one.
And I guess there's nothing wrong with looking for feedback, for example, you know, like if you're trying to improve, maybe not the rendering, maybe not the brushstroke, maybe not the design, but maybe the story, maybe the lighting. I don't know, something like that, you know. There's always something. That's my point. There's always something you're learning. I don't think you're doing stuff thinking that I don't expect to improve in anything, you know, doing this. Everyone is trying to get better somehow. And it's fine if you just, you know, let them know, like, hey, do you see anything about the shape language here? Like, can I, this was my goal. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
The other person will probably tell you, oh, if that was your goal, then yeah, you didn't really hit the mark. But here's how I would improve it to help you in that, to reach that goal. So,
it's not an
yeah.
attack. It's just we all want to see each other do better. And it takes a certain self-restraint to not take it too personally. Yeah, or
That's another
just
episode.
just be your own worst critic. Like if you don't want people to harshly comment on you, at least be a little bit hard on yourself so you know what to look out for. Don't just cook yourself, but take it to a degree where it's logical. Like, okay, this is clearly a mistake. How do I find a way to improve
Exactly.
it?
Because the thing is, you know something's wrong, you know something's off, because you can feel it. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but that's why you reach out to other people, because another set of eyes might be able to tell to spot those mistakes, and that's how you find them, and you can address them.
Yeah, it
So,
takes time to develop the. Eventually, you get there. Just have to do 1,000+ pieces over your lifetime,
oh
and
yeah, repetitions.
yeah, then it's just like kind of second nature. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Free to leave any comments, what you think. We're always open to feedback or like any new ideas for episodes. But yeah, that being said, take care, guys. Stay creative.
See you guys.